Hello and welcome. You're watching To The Point. Tonight we're going to present a special show on the Maggi controversy. By now everyone must know Maggi has been accused of unsafe levels of lead and using MSG without admitting to it. This is why Delhi and Uttarakhand, Gujarat and Jammu and Kashmir have banned Maggi noodles, whilst the Army and Navy canteens and large retailers like Big Bazar have stopped stocking the product. But how credible is the case against Maggi? Do we have legitimate grounds to ban the product, or have many authorities overreacted and possibly damaged Maggi's reputation in the process? These no doubt are contrarian questions, but it's time they were asked. And tonight, that's what I propose to do. So sit back and watch a very different discussion to what you've so far experienced on this subject. And joining me now for our special discussion is the former CEO of Procter & Gamble, Gurcharan Das, the well-known nutrition expert Shikhar Sharma, the co-founder of Perfect Relations, Dilip Cherian, consumer rights activist and author of Jago Grahak Jago, Bejon Mishra, Aam Aadmi Party spokesperson Somnath Bharti, and the former CEO of Britannia, Sunil Alagh. Mr. Alagh, let me start with the simple but what many will call a contrarian question. 3 states have so far cleared Maggi. They are Maharashtra, Goa and Kerala, and if some news reports are to be believed, that also includes Punjab and the Union Territory of Chandigarh. On the other hand, 4 states have banned Maggi. They are Delhi, Uttarakhand, Gujarat and Jammu and Kashmir. It's also no longer being stopped in Army and Navy canteens or by big retailers like Big Bazar. And the question I want to ask you is this: in these circumstances and given this background, are states like Delhi right to ban Maggi, or have they overreacted?
You know, as far as I'm concerned, there has been a general overreaction, and most by Delhi. In fact, Jammu and Kashmir has just banned it, saying that because other states are banning it, we don't have to test it. We are banning it now. And they've just overreacted. And what is dangerous in all this is that a brand that takes 50 years to develop a strong image can be destroyed in 50 minutes. And nobody is really checking or talking, or, you know, if you have a result saying that either Mr. Kejriwal or Mr. Modi is the most favored or the most popular Prime Minister, everybody will ask various questions. Where was it held? Rural, income, young, old. They start a million questions. How many people? What?
Okay.
Nothing is being asked. You know, 4 states have done it. 4 states are finding it right. 2 states are finding it wrong. Let's ban it all over India. And in any other country, I want to start by saying the government would be sued, and sued for millions of dollars, which they can least afford unless they are absolutely sure about what they are saying.
Let me bring you in, Somnath Bharti. One of the states that's banned it is the state of Delhi, or rather, to be accurate, the Union Territory of Delhi. You're a former law minister of that government. You're an MLA. You're here as a spokesman of that government. How do you respond to the charge you've overreacted?
Karan, whether we have overreacted or not, our decision has the basis in facts which I'll present before you. Out of 13 samples which we had gathered from the various markets in Delhi, 10 were found having lead in excess than the permissible limit. The permissible limit is 2.5, while the present lead in those samples were beyond 4. MSG content was equally available, and which is not which is a health hazard as per the standards of medicinal science. The Food Security Act.
I want to just interrupt you there. Forgive me. I want to just interrupt you there. MSG cannot be considered a health hazard because it is present in practically every spoonful of Chinese food you eat in India, and no one ever objects to it there. So let's be careful how we refer to MSG. And remember, glutamate is actually present in probably all milk products naturally. But carry on.
What I'm saying that as per the food standard and security, whatever we have the measures available to measure the safety of this food called Maggi, and to be available in the NCT of Delhi, which you rightly corrected, Union Territory, to be constitutionally correct, that's what you said. We need to be very, very cautious whenever the question of food security comes,
Okay.
we wanted to be balanced on both sides. And that is but not like J&K. J&K,
right.
interestingly,
Mr.
without
Bharti,
sending
let's
the food to the labs, they did not object on terrorist and the separatist.
Thank you,
flagging
Mr. Bharti. Thank you, Mr. Bharti. You're going
flag.
off the subject,
And
but I
here they
thank
are
you for
banning
having
Maggi
made that point
without
on
sending to the food
JFK.
security.
It's a point that is necessary, and I'm glad you're making it. Let me bring in Bijan Mishra. Bijan Mishra, you heard Mr. Bharti say that he has, and his state government in Delhi, oh, we don't have Bijan Mishra. Hopefully, we'll have him soon. Let me put that to you, Dilip Cherian. The point that's being made about, in fact, testing is that Mr. Bharti says that Delhi has acted on the basis of tests. They found lead levels to be high, therefore they've banned it. But look at Kerala. Kerala on day one stopped all government outlets selling Maggi because they believed it had high lead levels. 24 hours later, Kerala's own laboratories have said the lead levels are fine. So there, you've banned the sale in government outlets of a product that you yourself have discovered now has no lead problem at all.
You know, I think this is really the big issue. The big issue is that we need to have more facilities for testing because, you know, you can't breathe the air, you can't drink the water, is the situation this country lives in. So if you want to have processed foods, you need to have testing laboratories which can be relied on, and you need to be able to turn out tests at a much greater pace, because fundamentally this issue is more about testing and government's inability to step up to the plate.
But let me put the opposite to you. If Kerala stopped government outlets selling because it believes the lead levels were too high, and then the state's own laboratories turn around and say, actually, the lead levels are fine, shouldn't now the government do the honest thing and say, sorry, we made a mistake, we will hereafter start selling it in government outlets?
Absolutely. I think they need to, having taken this step and announced the test is good enough, but not anywhere near enough for the company. I agree.
Let me put to you, Bijan Mishra, now you're with us, the problem about Jammu and Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir has banned Maggi today, but they've done it without a single test being conducted. And if I recall the statement put out by the state government, it actually said, we are banning pending tests, which sounds like you're guilty till we find you innocent. Now that surely is peculiar logic, to put it mildly.
This is not fair. This is also not fair. You see, you have to understand that...
not fair to whom?
Not fair to everybody. I mean, you are denying the consumer of the choice.
Quite right. So you're criticizing the Jammu and Kashmir government?
Yes, yes. It's not fair, because you see, you have to go with the law, and of course the Food Safety and Standards Law 2006 is not applicable to Jammu and Kashmir, but Jammu and Kashmir on their own has done this, which is I mean, they've gone ahead to implement a law which, even though they are not covered under and they are not bound by the law, but
and they have no ground of their own to implement as of now.
Exactly, and you know what?
And what's worse is they're saying that we've banned pending tests, which
that's what I'm saying.
It's like finding a man guilty and saying, now you prove you're innocent.
I mean, come on. What law of any world is like this, you know, where you tell somebody you are a criminal and then you say, sorry, I made a mistake. You're not a criminal, so I let you go.
Mr. Mishra, this is fascinating. You are the author of Jago, Garak, Jako, and you are the person today saying to me that the step taken by the Jammu and Kashmir government is wrong, it's unfair.
Yes, it's unfair.
Let me bring you in, Shikha, and let me put to you the case of UP. This whole problem with Maggi began when in UP in February 2014, Maggi was found in Barabanki to be, as a result of a random test, suspicious. 16 months have passed and UP has still not banned it. And in fact, the state's Commissioner of Food and Security, a gentleman P.K. Singh, says actually, technically, we don't seem to have grounds to ban it. Does that not suggest that when states like Delhi or Gujarat or Jammu and Kashmir, which is the worst example, move to ban, they're doing it emotionally rather than on grounds of logic?
See, that's exactly the point. See, what happens is that because people do not know what the laws are, how they have to be followed, what the repercussions, they just take a knee-jerk reaction. So right from some states saying it's okay and we are not banning, and the other states saying we don't know if it's okay, so we are banning, the extremist view prevails because nobody has any clue what to do in the situation.
But you know, I'm fascinated by something. I had assumed when we invited the two of you, both Mr. Mishra and yourself, that you would in fact be in favor of the action to ban. You because you're a nutritionist, you because you speak on behalf of consumers. And I am surprised that in fact both of you, when I'm putting what I call deliberate contrarian questions, have actually come around to the argument that an unfairness is being done to Maggi by Jammu and Kashmir. And in this case, where people who don't have reason to ban are banning because everyone else is banning. They're just jumping on a bandwagon.
You see, when we talk about consumer protection, you always have to understand that you can't be driven by emotions. You have to be driven by science. You have to be driven by evidence. You have to make sure that the consumer protection prevails over health and safety of the consumers, but not at the cost of knee-jerk actions and what you feel is right or wrong, and you go ahead to do that,
so you are
undermining the law.
So you are sensing knee-jerk reactions here?
Absolutely. You see, these are reactions which you see, look at the way the bans have happened all over the country. The bans have happened because one state wants to show upmanship of the other state that if you have banned, I have also banned. Irrespective.
The knee jerks when there is no data. The problem is that you are dealing in a situation where laboratories are taking some inexorable time to do the testing, and every laboratory seems to be finding different results in every part of the country. Meaning, why is Gujarat banned and why is Delhi banned? I mean, they're both saying that some of our samples are found to be high and some are low.
I want to bring in Gurcharan Das. Gurcharan Das, you've been CEO of a company that's very similar to Nestle. Your company was Procter & Gamble. I want to put to you what Uttarakhand has done today. They announced their ban this morning. Their principal health secretary, a gentleman called Om Prakash, has gone on record. He told PTI that they've banned it because 2 out of 300 samples failed the test for MSG. He's also revealed and admitted that all the samples had no lead content at all. So lead was not a concern. It was simply 2 samples out of 300 failing the test for MSG. Then he adds, these are just preliminary tests. All the samples will now go to Calcutta for a final test. Is he therefore right to ban on the basis of 2 out of 300 only for MSG, no problem with lead, and these are only preliminary?
Yeah, I think that Nestle is being unfairly targeted on this issue. And really we've got is a storm in a teacup in which both sides have done wrong, in the sense that the governments have overreacted and Nestle has underreacted. Nestle produces probably the safest products in the world. And if I were in Nestle's, I mean, this Maggi noodles is available in more than 100 countries. It's been available in India and they are the leader for over 30 years. So suddenly a controversy is created. And the answer to such things is that you have a measured response. You have proper testing, and if you are guilty, you certainly must be punished. But here what we are seeing is, it's almost like a diversion, that Delhi, which should be worried about being the worst polluted city in the world, with the worst air and water, is banning Maggi noodles, spending their energy on that, instead of cleaning up the air and the water. Now these are not complete trade-offs, but we need, what will kill people is not Maggi noodles. What will kill people is our water.
Mr. Bharti, I believed when I invited guests to this show that at least 2 of my guests, in addition to you, would agree with the step taken by you, Gujarat, Jammu and Kashmir and Uttarakhand, that is banning Maggi noodles. I believe that would be the position of Mr. Bejon Mishra. I believe that would be the position of Shikhar Sharma. They believe, on the other hand, that an injustice is being done, knee-jerk reactions are happening. You happen to be at the moment the only one on your side, so I'm going to give you a fair chance to answer. You've just heard Gurcharan Das and you've heard everyone else point out knee-jerk reactions, lack of data, and perhaps mixed and wrong priorities. You should be concentrating on Delhi's air and water rather than Maggi noodles. Those are all the criticisms leveled against you. Now you're on your own today, unfortunately. Go ahead. You have a fair whack. Please answer.
Karan, first, because you said MSG is not harmful, I just read, because I thought that you would know more than me, I read the internet information brought to me that migraine headaches, heart ailments, and skin rashes and whatnot can be caused by MSG.
It depends upon the quantity of MSG you have. Please, not just MSG, the quantity of MSG.
The limits.
Yeah, that's what I said. If the quantity of MSG is in excess than the permissible limit,
Mr. Mishra wants to correct you. Mr. Mishra wants to correct you. Give him a moment and I'll come back to you. Don't worry. Mr. Mishra may be on your side this time.
Yes, yes. I am actually.
Go ahead.
You see, the law is very clear. And it starts from the Prevention of Food Adulteration Act 1954, which very clearly states that if you use MSG as an ingredient in any of your product, you would put on the label a kind of an advisory in red saying that it is not fit for infant and pregnant women. Now I tell you, I heard Mr. Gurucharan Das, he mentioned about, Nestle being very quiet and not being very aggressive. I know the reason. Because about 30 years back, I still recollect, when Maggi came into the market for the first time, they were using MSG and they were not putting that advisory as per the law. Because they were not putting that advisory.
Mr. Mishra, I have to step in on grounds of fairness. What they were doing 30 years ago, I don't know. I'll defer to your knowledge. But let me finish. Can I finish? Let me finish. I'll defer to you when you claim that 30 years ago they were doing it. I don't know. But what Maggi has made crystal clear today, because they've issued a statement, is that there is no added MSG. Good. They do not, just to finish, let me finish, this is critical. Maggi's made it clear they do not add MSG. However, gluconate, which is a component of MSG, is available in the product, as Maggi says, because it comes from groundnut protein, from onion powder and wheat flour. So it's very important that you should understand this, Mr. Bharti. Maggi does not add MSG, but glutamate comes from groundnut protein, onion powder and wheat flour. Also, it's an amino acid which is part of many milk products.
I must
let him answer. He's on his own. Go ahead.
In excess of the permissible limit is causing such diseases. That is a cause of concern. But more so ever, what I want to bring out to your viewers through your channel, that this food security and safety departments of various state governments, were they sleeping till now? What they have been doing so far?
The answer.
It's just like anti-corruption departments of various state governments.
Government is sleeping.
How do they get? That's what I'm saying, sir. Because these departments which are meant for accountability, these departments have never been given that kind of autonomy and the functionality.
Just a moment. You're making a contentious point. You're suggesting.
Just take an example.
Mr. Bharti, you're suggesting that in fact earlier departments were being negligent. The point is they may not have been negligent. They may not have found anything wrong, and that's what Maggi's position is. There is nothing wrong.
No, question is not that. The question is just like anti-corruption branch of Delhi government, which was not doing almost anything for last 22 years. When we got hold of it, when we made it functional, when we made it do things which it was supposed to do,
I don't think these are apt comparisons. You're giving yourself a pat on the back for working with excessive zeal.
People's health
has
never been of concern.
I want to bring in Sunil Alagh. I don't want you to start making political points. No, you're going off the subject. Mr. Alagh, I know that you have serious concerns about the method of testing done in Delhi. Let's come to specifics, Mr. Bharti. Let's not make polemical and political points which are just self-serving. This is too important an issue for you to get away with polemics.
The government should back up and understand the repercussions, and they must empower these bodies.
Mr. Bharti, this is not an occasion to be a politician as if you're in the Vidhan Sabha with a captive audience of 67 of your own colleagues and no one to stop you. This is a discussion where we want to make intelligent points because viewers want to try and understand, and I think we owe it to the viewers that we should focus on the subject. Now, Mr. Alagh has serious concerns about the sort of... Oh, Mr. Bharti, let someone else speak. For a moment, pause, hold your breath and let someone else speak. Mr. Bharti,
and Preeti Zinta. That makes no sense to me.
Mr. Bharti, let someone else speak. Mr. Alagh has serious concerns about the sort of testing done in Delhi. Mr. Bharti is insisting that earlier governments and agencies were being negligent and not testing. He claims that he's fired them up and now they're testing and discovering all sorts of faults with Maggi. Explain to us your concerns with the nature of testing done in Delhi. Go ahead, Mr. Alagh.
You know, I'm 100% confident. What they've done is they've tested the noodles separately and they've tested the sachet which has the seasoning or the masala separately. Okay, that's a sealed pack inside another sealed pack which is not for sale, and they've tested both separately. The law says, as Mr. Bharti said, 2.5 ppm of lead is permissible. In the noodles, they have found 0.5. Your Delhi government has found 0.5. In the masala, they have found 4 or 4.5, where for a seasoning, it's 10 ppm. Now noodles, nobody takes the masala pack and puts the whole masala into their mouth. They mix it in the noodles. I challenge you, Mr. Bharti, today, if you tell me your testing has been done the way that is, put the masala into the noodles, mix it, you will find it is 0.5 or 0.6. And you are going ahead and doing your own process in Delhi. I will test the sachet separately, but the sachet rule is 10 ppm. And the other product is 2.5. You are mixing it all up, not you, but your results. And the politicians are going by whatever that. I challenge you today. If you can correct me, please correct me. Ask them if they tested it by mixing it or did they test it separately.
Just a moment.
The other point I want to make very quickly is, 1 second, very quickly, lead is never added. Lead comes from various elements in the ground and everywhere else. And therefore, this product is not at all. We have jumped the gun and you've ruined the brand. And if they sue you for the brand itself.
Stop now. You have to give Mr. Bharti a chance.
Fine.
Go ahead, Mr. Bharti. A specific
Let him answer and tell me that Delhi has done it the way together.
I fail to understand.
Go ahead, Mr. Bharti.
I fail to understand when there is a question of public health, when there is there are so many deliberations. And when there is a dedicated department, and Delhi government is the first government which gave
good enough
opportunities
wrong data.
Mr. Bharti, there was a specific accusation
of wrong data. Have you checked on what basis is the data?
I heard you patiently.
Come on, yeah, please.
Please hear me out.
Okay, tell me. Okay, first tell me yes or no. Whether tested separately or not. Just answer that question.
Mr. Alak, please don't interrupt him. This is not one of those channels where we encourage people to shout at each other.
No, I know.
Let him answer. It's only fair he should answer.
Let me put my view. May not like it. What I'm saying, sir, the government gave an opportunity to the company to come forward, and India CEO was there in the secretariat. He failed to satisfy the government. He failed to satisfy the authorities, and he had no answer.
Can I put a question to you?
Probably a foreigner who was accompanying him.
Mr. Bharti, listen to me for a moment. It's not a question of the... Mr. Bharti, the point made by Mr. Alak is that the nature of the test that you did was wrong. That you tested two elements that should be combined, you tested them separately and came to the wrong conclusion.
We are the only government which is acting responsibly.
You're not answering the question.
Not
the problem is you don't want to answer the question. I'm going to come to the two people here because both, Mr. Bharti, you're not answering a specific question. You're going into polemics again. I'm afraid you're being a politician rather than responding to a specific criticism.
Much in excess of 2.5
I'm going to come to the two people here who actually have answers to that, I believe, because both of them were nodding. First you, Mr. Mishra, and then Shikha.
You see, whenever any food authority takes action in terms of violation of the law, they have to be very transparent. And they have to come out saying how did they do the testing, in what manner they did the testing, and how the results came out, so that they found it violating the law, and they're going ahead to initiate a prosecution against them through a show cause notice and an opportunity to be heard.
Can I ask you something? Are you therefore suggesting that the Delhi government has not been transparent about its testing?
Absolutely not. None of the governments have been. None of the governments have been.
Can I ask you another question? Do you therefore support what Mr. Alak has said, that the very nature of the testing was wrong?
No, I would not go with what Mr. Alak said. I would go with what the government would say, because, you know, we always find Mr. Alak a part of the industry. So I would not go with what the industry spokesperson will speak. But I would definitely go with what the government will speak. So I want the government to completely come out clearly to say that we did due diligence, we got a third party audit done in terms of the methodology adopted, in terms of ensuring that all the methods which were adopted were as per law, as per the methodology, as spelt out in the law, spelt out in the standards, and then we came to a conclusion.
That's perfectly clear. You also had concerns and objections. So let me begin by putting this to you. Do you accept Mr. Alag's point that the government has tested separately two separate ingredients that need to be combined before you test them? You can't test them separately.
No, I do not agree, because when you put out a food in the market, right, you cannot say that, oh, please eat it together, only then it's safe. If you happen to eat it separately, if you happen to put the taste maker and taste it separately, it's dangerous, and it's okay to be dangerous because we told you to eat it together. You can't do that.
No,
if the food product, so if a food product is going out into the market, even if it's going into different sachets, you cannot tomorrow say that no, little bit of lead in the sachet was okay because you didn't mix it, it's different. No, food product has to be safe right from the beginning.
The other issue is that you need to check whether government laboratories are checking for glutamate or they're checking for MSG. There's a two completely different tests, and apparently, and Nestle has said this in communications, that most tests glutamate, which can happen in many of the other ingredients you're talking about.
And in other words,
it's not MSG, you're getting glutamate levels and comparing that with what MSG permissible levels are.
And therefore, in fact, people are being misled, or laboratories are misleading us and claiming that glutamate equates with MSG.
And this is where I think Maggie's lost the battle, because it's simply not communicating that this is the sequence of things, and this is what the testing is showing. It deserves to know.
I'm going to come back to you, Gurcharan Das, because one very critical point made by Sunil Alag is that two separate ingredients that should be mixed before they're eaten are being tested separately and are leading therefore to confusing and misleading results. You heard Shikhar Sharma say that you can't say that an item when eaten on its own could be above a permissible level, but when eaten with something else is acceptable, because that is not. I'll come to you in a moment's time. I'm seeing you shake your head, Mr. Alag. I'll come to you in a moment's time, but let Gurcharan Das answer that first. Do you accept that key point that these items needed to be combined before they were tested? They can't be tested separately, assuming that is what happened, assuming that's what happened?
I think Sunil makes a very good point, and I wish Nestle would have made this point. In fact, the deafening silence of Nestle is part of the problem here. And if I were in the shoes of the CEO of Nestle, I would be saying exactly what Sunil has been saying. And so I personally think here what we have is a failure on both sides. The government is overreacting. The company is underreacting. What we need is much more of a dialogue going on and a measured response on something like this. What we have is a panic being created, and that's not very good. Not good for the company, not good for the only good thing that might come out of this whole controversy is that it will bring out the importance of food standards.
All right.
And food standards today need to be controlled, and we need to be concerned with food standards, especially water.
Let's then at that point take a break. I want to come back and slightly change the discussion. No longer talk about whether Maggi should be banned, whether there are grounds to ban it, whether in the process an injustice has allegedly been done to Nestle, but talk about the fact that many people know in their heart of heart that Maggi is not perhaps the best thing for you to eat. It's probably what people colloquially call junk food. And how should junk food be handled? Clearly, banning is wrong. But do we need to make advice available to people that too much of junk food is not good for you? And is that where government should be concentrating? And is that the message they should be putting across, which unfortunately they are not doing? Shikhar Sharma, let's come to that point that I was making at the end of part one. After all, Maggi noodles is what's fast food. It's what people colloquially call junk food. It's like burgers, chips and heat and eat meals. They're not bad for you, but if you have them all the time, they're not very good for you, and they're certainly not the best way of filling your stomach on a regular basis. But I have two questions. Are those grounds for banning it, or are those grounds for putting out advice in clever and intelligent forms that you should be eating other things, not relying on this as your staple? Which of the two?
Okay, if you ask me what is the right way, I would say banning is never the solution. But I think if you look across the world, what do governments do? They put a fat ban, that products which are more than this fat content, we'll ban them. So mostly governments react by banning products they don't understand, or they don't understand what is the repercussion of those products going to be.
But should they be instead advising people against making this a daily staple?
Yes, absolutely. And I think the most important thing is that in schools and colleges, that's where the actual ban should be happening rather than at the government level.
Let me put that to you, Mr. Bharti. If you are genuinely concerned about the health of the people of Delhi, and I accept your sincerity and I accept you are, and I also accept your point that previous governments have not been concerned, then what the message you should be sending out, particularly to children, is that Maggi is not good for you on a daily basis. You should make it a snack, have it occasionally, but don't rely on it. And you should be telling mothers, don't send Maggi to school for your children as a lunch because you don't want to cook. But that message and that advice isn't coming out. What you're doing instead is to take the unwarranted, and I would add lazy step of banning it. And I suggest that you should actually get your priorities right if you want to look after the health of people, because there's a whole range of foods that aren't good and shouldn't be had on a regular daily basis, but don't ban them.
Karan, you have all democratic rights to criticize us the way you criticize. But just saying that we have acted in a lazy manner, that's not correct. We are the only government which has acted judiciously, which has acted in a fair manner. We got 13 samples checked. We found 10 defaulting. We called the company representative. We got their version. We couldn't get satisfied. We have taken every step, but your Sikha's point is correct. If you recall, let me just remind you, in 2003 there was a huge uproar in the nation about Coca-Cola, that Coca-Cola has pesticides, but we don't know what happened to that. There are governments.
Well, I'll give you an example from 2003. What happened in 2003 is that Cadbury's was seen with worms coming out of it.
Even on
It wasn't banned. It wasn't banned. A couple of batches were withdrawn, but Cadbury's was not banned.
On Coke, I'll tell you what happened. It was discovered that the pesticide level was coming from groundwater, and the company had to put in extra filters to make sure that these contaminants did not end up in the final product. So I think companies need to learn from experiences, and that's how it goes.
Rotten food to people of Delhi.
But the question I asked you was, do you want to, Mr. Bharti, do you want to tailor your advice to help people, or do you want to ban products because it's easier? Which of the two? Do you want to tailor advice to help people, advise them about what they should eat, what they should not rely on as a daily staple, or do you want to ban? Answer that.
So we are not here to ban or not ban. What we are saying is that there is a food security department.
Very effectively.
Every product. Because see, this moment we have no choice but to ban, because previous governments have allowed them without taking care of their
You're making up for other governments.
So this moment, we have to strengthen our department so much so that no product which is not qualifying on the set standards would be allowed in the market.
Quite right. So everything will be banned hereafter.
What are the steps
Just like anti-corruption department.
I want to bring in very quickly the two other
strengthened.
gentlemen who are patiently waiting. I want to put this to you. I'm speaking to both of you as former CEOs of leading companies. First, Mr. Gurcharan Das. 3 states have already said there's nothing wrong with Maggi: Maharashtra, Goa and Kerala. If the reports in the papers are correct, then perhaps this Union Territory of Chandigarh and possibly Punjab could join them. If you find more and more people doing tests and coming to the conclusion that there's nothing wrong with Maggi, will Maggi not be in the situation of having had its brand shattered, its good name destroyed, its reputation ended through no fault of its own?
Well, I think that's correct, and what it points to is the importance of being proactive on the part of Nestle. Nestle should be bringing out this information on an emergency basis to people. But you raised a very good question, because Maggi's salt level is very high, and what makes Maggi unhealthy is the very high salt level. It's almost like 70% of the day's requirement. And so that's what the government should work on. Make Maggi disclose what the level of salt, the percentage of daily requirement of a person,
Quite right.
so that the mother and the parents would know that how much salt there is in Maggi. That's the direction that we should go.
Can I put that issue to Sunil Alag? Mr. Alag, in fact, this point about Maggi having higher levels of salt than it should was in fact first revealed by CSE, the Center for Science and Environment, in 2012. No government in Delhi or in any other part of the country has actually issued advice to the eaters of Maggi, which they could have and perhaps should have done, that watch out, the salt levels are high. So I come back to the question I put to Mr. Bharti. Rather than ban, should we be finding intelligent ways of communicating, particularly to the young, that this is junk food, have it occasionally, but don't rely on it as a staple? And should we be telling mothers, don't send this as a daily meal for your kids when they go to school? That's the advice we should put out rather than ban.
You know, I agree with what Gurcharan is saying, but remember, Italy lives on pasta, and pasta is considered an extremely healthy diet. I mean, so fundamentally, noodles is not unhealthy. Now we come into the question of salt. You can put it in, but you can go to the other extreme. What was being suggested, should Cadbury's write that if your child has 5 slabs of chocolates every day, they'll have bad teeth? So please, mother, make sure he doesn't have more than 3 slabs. What extreme can you go to when parents have enough to do? The second point I want to very quickly make, Mr. Bharti has not answered whether it was tested separately or not till now. If he at least admits that yes, they was tested separately, and Dr. Sharma is again wrong, because 4 ppm of seasoning is still below the law of 10 ppm. So let's change the law. Even separately they are below the law. You cannot take 4 ppm and apply it to noodles, which is what Delhi has done. One second. Second, Dr. Sharma said both should be equally good. One second. If you put a packet of chilies into a product and that person swallows the entire chilies without mixing it and then goes and has diarrhea, and I want to ask Dr. Sharma this, will you blame the fact that a packet of chilies was put and they have to put a warning, please don't eat this sachet of chilies alone?
For the God's sake,
nobody will do it.
We are government.
Nobody will do it. Who has eaten that packet of seasoning on its own?
We understand and we have the
please don't
to take care of the
start
people's
quarreling with
health
each
concerns.
other. You've done enough of it earlier on, right at the end of the show. Let's have a little bit of peace and calm. There's a very important point that I want to draw out of the answer we heard from Sunil Alag. At the end of the day, is the onus on the manufacturer to put on his packet, if you eat this 4 times a day, it's bad for you? Or is the onus on intelligent parents to know that they shouldn't be giving Maggi 4 times a day to their children? You know that it's not good for them. There are some things parents should know for themselves. They don't have to be told by the product maker.
Let's assume that parents are not well informed. The government is sitting on a huge quantum of funds, the central government, which can be used for consumer education. Why don't they do this regularly on product after product? I'll tell you why they don't do it. Because a whole range of products from Khoya at Diwali time onwards are all contaminated and are not even branded. So we are really talking of a ticking time bomb which is sitting inside your stomach.
As someone whose prime concern is in fact consumer awareness and consumer protection, do you think we need to sensitize governments, and I'm talking about governments, to the need to give better advice, proactive advice, rather than to simply knee-jerk and ban?
Absolutely. You know, that is why from 3 crores we went to 100 crores of expenditure every year on this Jago Grahak Jago campaign. The whole motive of that campaign was to create a brand amongst the citizens which will effectively communicate and do advisory to the consumers, which the industry is failing to do. So it was done with a purpose that, you know, you would do corrective advertisements. For example, if somebody is advertising that this is good for health, government should be coming out saying that advertisement is wrong. You know, and you should not get carried away by those advertisements and bring in again, you know, celebrities like Amitabh did in terms of Polio Plus. Why can't you bring Amitabh in to do some social, you know, kind of a message?
That's a good message that you're putting across. One last question. If at the end of the day, Mr. Bharti, it is discovered that governments like yours have been unfair because the tests have shown that there were not impermissible levels of lead, there were not impermissible levels of MSG, would you apologize to Nestle? You may have done very great damage to a brand that has taken decades to build. Will you apologize if you've done them an injustice? There is an if there, I accept, but if you have, will you apologize?
Karan, it did not probably give much adherence to what I said before. Much thought to it. I said that we gave enough chances to the company to explain to us, are our results wrong, the one which we showed to them? They could not satisfy. Please mind it, we are running government. We are the custodian of 1.25 crores of people. We are not running a small show. We are here in a serious business. Public health is of utmost importance. Look at the way BJP ruled MC to give health licenses.
Stick to your government.
For 100
Let's
rupees,
not become
100 rupees worth
polemical.
license.
I'm stopping you.
They take 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs of rupees, they give license.
Oh, no, I'm stopping you now.
Governments have made
this is not an opportunity to swipe at your opponents. I'm going to come back. I'm coming back to one of my two CEOs. Very quickly, Mr. Das. Very quickly, Mr. Das. Does Maggi have potential grounds to take legal action, for example, against Jammu and Kashmir, who banned without a single test to provide evidence for banning, who banned without perhaps even a complaint from anyone in Jammu and Kashmir, as far as I know, although I could be wrong on that? Do they have recourse to legal action in the case of Jammu and Kashmir, just to use that as an example?
Who are you asking?
You.
Oh, me. Okay. Well, you know, I'm not a lawyer, and you need to ask a lawyer that question.
You're a CEO.
Because what is the legal?
You're a
yes,
CEO.
And certainly my instinct would be, yes, I would certainly want some sort of recompense for the damage done to my brand. But what sort of action that would require, and legally what would be sustainable, I would not know.
You're a media specialist, and images of companies is in fact your forte. Would you advise Maggi to take that sort of action, provided there were grounds for doing so? There's a big if there. Or would you say to them, no, don't exacerbate the problem. If you've been cleared, accept the problem you've gone through, build your image instead, don't look for recompense, don't look for legal action.
I think at least a token action of that kind, of actually filing something against an authority, would make sense, because you need a basis to build on. Today the brand is actually pretty much been flattened to the ground, and you need to go somewhere from there. You need a quick building block, and I would say take a flying leap once your tests are in your hand. Independent, authoritative tests which are clear and with no ambiguity.
Very quickly, I'm going to come to you for the last word, and you really have to answer in just 15 seconds. Your life is dedicated to protecting the consumer. I'm asking you the opposite question. Do you think Maggi has mishandled their own defense?
Absolutely. If they were right, they should have come out in public, defending themselves, gaining the credibility, gaining the confidence of the consumers, and not lost the brand equity. And in my view, they have lost out an opportunity.
So Maggi has been its own worst enemy, as well as having other enemies in this case.
Absolutely right, Karan, and I believe that 100%.
All right, my thanks to all three of you for coming to studio. My thanks to my other guests as well. And as I said, this has been a deliberate contrarian program, where the object of the exercise was to raise questions from the other side, so that at least an attempt can be made to represent a viewpoint that otherwise we have not been made familiar with. It may not be the right one, it may not be the full truth, but it's always in our interest to hear the other side of the story, even if you want to dismiss it and disagree with it. That's the spirit with which we've done this program today. You have been. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.